Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Drunken Tarrasque, where my voice will only hold out for a little bit. I have Rachel with me today.
Hello.
Yes, and we are talking about story versus agency.
Well, player agency. But the major concept being that there's a bit of a thing at war whenever you're at a game, because it's the predefined story versus whatever players are going to do.
Yeah, now, this is something, for me personally, I'm more often the DM, and Rachel knows that. And there's been a lot of advice columns arguing about agency and then your story, and the biggest problem is many of them don't believe player agency and the story are on separate sides of an electrified fence that if you get close, they're going to kill both sides. And the bigger problem is these are the people who think story in a literature way of telling story. If you
Very linear.
Yeah, it's not even just linear. It's like, I have this predefined path. We are going to take it. Essentially, pure railroading. Now, how I handle this is, and I kind of look to The Last Avatar, the cartoon, the good one.
No, the last Airbender, Mike.
You know what I mean.
You just said the last Airbender. I mean,
yes, you know what I mean. The Last Airbender, and the reason why is it's a very simple concept. What is the purpose of that party? I'm looking in D&D terms. It's to stop the Fire Nation. That is their ultimate end goal.
But they do kind of go a little bit like D&D in the sense that you've got basically party members doing weird side quests, doing weird shit on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're not even going to talk about Legend of Korra, because that's like...
But yeah, yes, exactly.
We don't even talk about that. It's like that.
But this is the thing, is you look at that as it's a serialized type of thing, but they still have an ultimate goal that will drive them. And that's kind of the most important thing if you want to have a story based and still have significant agency, is that the players have to agree on what is their end goal. Be it to stop an evil villain, collect the magical MacGuffins and whatnot. This is the way you can actually still have player agency, because a good DM, if a player does a side quest, knows how to somehow, in that session or in future sessions, weave that back into the main story. And it is a lot of that thinking. And good DMs will take their time, relook over their notes, or go, okay, I'm going to find something that's a hint towards the main campaign story.
So basically what you're saying is that the best thing to do is just have the main plan in mind, the main goal in mind, and then leave enough room for player agency.
Yeah, plagiarism. I heard that line, but no, but yes.
Not plagiarism. I meant to say.
But no, but
it's I mean.
It's exactly that. You want that wiggle room, because without that wiggle room, you're going to be radically screwed over in the long term. You look at one of the more popular D&D dungeons is Temple of Elemental Evil. There is a lot of detail there, but it still allows your players to do whatever they want and affect the world in it to respond back. When you tackle this problem, I don't like how the new L5R beta was doing things. And what they did is that it had a moment where the player could ultimately redirect completely the story if they had enough points in something, and there's a couple little mechanics. The reason why I don't agree with that is that the DM is, in a way, a player a bit. They tell the story a bit, and taking that away from them will honestly alienate your DM. And this is why, when you look at agency, your players can do whatever you want. The DM can technically kill anyone at any time, but then again, that doesn't make a fun game. And everyone has their own story they want to tell. A good DM will pull on those little threads and weave them together. Now, for example, our party. Our party that we have going on, or had going on, whatever the right proper tense is that they're going to stop an invasion. That is the whole important. That's the whole, in layman term, the gist of it. We have Rachel, who is a pixie who's trying to get back at a lost artifact that was destroyed or taken from her. We have our resident ranger whose family was slaughtered by the evil villains to a degree and lost
spoilers, Mike.
No, but it's like, and the thing is, I have this story set up of you're going to fight them, so how do I weave these kind of different things? Well, easily I focus on, okay, what's the unifying nature? They've all either lost something or they're dealing with problems, and I can easily have them in some way connected to the main campaign by little villainy actions, or they're responding to the invasion and they're doing it in their only way they know how. The players have any ability to handle it the way they want, but at the same time, as much as they have the agency to handle it however they want, the story is ultimately going to lead in that direction to tie them into a bigger villain, because how do you set up an evil empire, an evil group, is that you kind of have to slowly build them up into that direction and do these tiered systems of villains. That's, again, how do you still acknowledge player agency? And you cannot ignore this whatsoever.
Well, I really don't like that move a bit in L5R where we're talking about. I mean, not to go too far off topic, but it seems like some of these folks really do just kind of want to get rid of the idea of the DM because they think it's a little bit too restrictive. But I don't think that's the case. I think you do need to have that that player
mediator.
who is both a mediator and a storyteller. I really do think that helps overall. That's my opinion.
Well, that's the thing, is that with telling a story, if you literally want to tell a story, but you don't want your players to have any real impact on it, I'm sorry, that turns into you should be writing a book. This is the biggest thing to understand, is that there's a give and take between both sides. The DM has a universal story that he wants to tell, an archetypical story, and the players have their own little stories they want to play out. And good DMs will find that middle ground of going, okay, ultimately I'll rewrite just a tad bit of my story and whatnot. And that's the important thing to realize, is what are the parts that DM has to rewrite, and what part do the players actually have to, for a tad bit, rewrite of themselves. Because you got to realize that you can make any character in the game, but you got to realize, how does it fit? You can make the Joker in any universe, but you got to realize it may not fit in the universe that the DM created, and you have to have that back and forth between players and DMs.
You said the Joker. But I mean, that's... It seems that we're just kind of caught in this sort of delicate balance, because you're trying to both balance the story that the DM wants to tell versus the whatever it is, that the organized chaos of the players. Because that's one of the reasons why I don't like the idea of doing away with the DM effectively.
And actually neutering the DM's own agency over the story.
Yes, because it's like herding cats most of the time. It really is. And I can understand but it's like you kind of have to be able to bring them back on story. Because if you don't do that, it's just kind of like, what's the point in even building anything? Might as well. I mean, I can understand why some DMs just do the thing of just randomly generating a dungeon, do not have to deal with any of the extra stuff.
Well, I mean, again, this is the important thing. It's that natural conversation that has to be between players and DM. This is why Session 0, again, is so important. It's to so everyone comes to an understanding of what they can do, what they can't do, how far they can push and lean against each other. Because if you don't understand that basic concept, everything will implode. Your games will die. One of the things that I have is to actually allow player agency to feel even important and actually seem relevant is Rachel finally realized the level of detailed notes I take. And this is one of the things, how do you respect this and how do you respect the story? Is you take a bunch of notes and you start pulling on those little threads to make their actions feel like they have agency and feel like they have weight. Because what Rachel, when she saw it, is like, I'm going through my notes, and she's like, oh, that's just a couple pages. Like,
I didn't just figure it out. I've known. Believe me, I know. You take a lot of notes.
Yeah, there are pages for even a simple session, and
pages and pages.
Well, that's the thing, is that's kind of one, I feel, the one ways how do you balance that agency versus story is because when you have all these notes, as a DM, you can completely go right back to it and look at every little action they did and start realizing I can pull on this thread of what they did 5 sessions ago about how they assaulted these people, or they took the bad guys prisoner and they just let one of them escape thinking it was nothing because they were more powerful. This is how you have the story work and not actually come into conflict with the player's agency. It's by actually working with detailed notes. And with those notes, again, as I said, like even looking at my note page right before here, I even have in color coded. Yes, I am. Here's the thing: I'm not the most studious of note takers, but with this, it's like taking color coding of warnings of this player did this player said this with someone overhearing it. It makes the world not feel arbitrary. It makes the players not get mad, and it actually gives you as a DM an ability to enrich the story. Because you're like, oh, this person said this one little thing, and everyone else will respond to that in kind. And again, if your players start getting agitated saying, hey, that's unfair, as a DM, there's another important reason why. So if they want to complain, hey, you're taking away from your agency, you can actually bring out your notebook and show them, like, you said this on such and such a date. Yes, I'm acting like a fucking stenographer in a courtroom and literally saying, this is what happens when you do something. Your agency honestly matters. You just didn't see the end result as quickly as you were hoping for. And Rachel's all quiet thinking, dear God in heaven, Mike, what the fuck are you doing?
No, I understand what you're doing. It's just... I do understand why you would do that. I do.
Well, I mean, like, as Rachel says, like, she understands. It's because in doing so, you're able to merge and not have conflict between agency and story. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the thing that I think it's also a false idea when you look at agency and story. Like, people say, oh, there's going to be conflict. It's like, it only comes into conflict when you have people who are not willing to negotiate and bend. That you might have a player that just wants to be the main character, the main hero, and not care about anyone else. That's usually where story and agency come into conflict, is that someone in the group is not negotiating with another player. They're not talking to the group and trying to figure out, how do we work together?
The only thing I worry about, though, is I really do think that there's going to be a continuing of the trend where people are going to try to continue to dumb down things, and in doing so, we're going to try and be like, we don't need a DM. Okay, at the point where you're saying, I don't need a DM, or we don't need to do any of this stuff, you might as well just go LARP. Or something.
And honestly, yeah, I've seen
park,
that.
Rock, paper, scissors. I mean, if that's your thing, do your thing. You do that. But don't remove it entirely for everybody. Like, don't do that as a thing, or have that be a part of this ingrained into the system.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the importance of realizing how interconnected both those aspects are, and many people don't realize how interconnected they are. Like, again, agency, player, DM, player, what I'm trying to say, the whole smorgasbord of the arguments of story, agency, players, and DM. They're very much interconnected, and many of the people, players, new players, and even old ones I've seen, they don't see this nuance that's inherently there, and they're trying to push what they believe instead of looking at what it does. Because one of the things when you tackle with a group of players, Rachel had said it beforehand, it's like herding cats. And this is the thing. we have free will. Your characters have free will, but that free will responds in their environment and how you take it. Many people, what I've seen when they complain about agency, the bad ones, is that they're complaining that their actions had consequences that they didn't foresee or wish. The bad DMs go, you're not doing what I want, thus I'm punishing you and stripping you away. It's most of the complaints are only with bad DMs and stuff like that.
I don't know if I have anything else to say on it aside from that anyone who goes too linear kind of just deserves what they get.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you're going to have a whole bunch of people who are... I mean, that's why needs to be this delicate balance, because if you're too linear, people are going to get bored. They're going to get bored, they're going to they're going to check out, and then you're just going to start seeing people just not show up. Like, at first it'll be like one person, and they're going to be like, oh, I got like other plans or something, but then they don't show up, and then another person just doesn't show up, and soon you're just going to find yourself with you and maybe one other person.
Well, here's the other thing. If you're too random and too pure agents, and people argue pure agents, but if you're too much like let the players do whatever they want exactly whenever they want, you then also have the exact inverse that will cause the same response. Like, if you don't have a solid driving point, even if it's just from session to session, many players drift away because it's like you get the sensation of...
Yeah, because there's no direction.
It's not even direction. You feel like your actions don't matter. If it's just is complete random, it's like it's nihilism. It's like, it doesn't matter, so why the fuck should I play?
It's... If it gets too crazy, it starts to interfere with, the playing of other people. Like, you can go so far as to affect the world that it affects other people and other players that are trying to do something.
Yep, it's those little interplays that are very difficult to work with. But if you can find the perfect way to strike the right balance in general, and then find the right balance for your group, 9 times out of 10, your sessions will end with great stories. Just remember, agency and story is a balancing act.
Yeah, I think this will end up being a shorter one. I think we've pretty much said all that can be said on it, and I guess so. Just make certain that there's a balance and everything. You know what? Do you think that there's any particular way that's the best way to keep things balanced?
Me, personally, I would think to keep things balanced, again, I talked about writing detailed notes, but you kind of have little plot points in between your main point that players should hit. I look at it, and I'm looking for in specifics for 5th edition.
I do like that you do that. I do like that you work more on a milestone system rather than a points leveling system.
Well, it's not exactly that. What it is that I open up the DMG and I look at tiers of play. And for me, there's about 4 tiers of play, like level 1 through 4-ish, 5 through 8-ish, 10 through 15, and 15 into 20. In each tier, or I'm giving a rough, I can't remember them exactly, but like you look at each tier of play, and there's a transition point between those 2 levels, and for me, that is the rough equivalent of an important milestone or story plot to be plugged in. If you work in that structure, each story can be self-contained, each bracket can be self-contained, but they naturally progress to the next one, and if the players go in a radical direction, you can still have another set in tile design. Like, you might have to rewrite tier 2 to get to tier 3 and get it back on track, but you still allow the players to, even in a obtuse way, return to the main plot, even if you kind of branch off. Because it allows it to work in chunks, small, intimate goals to begin with, but at the same time, once those small goals are reached, they are a stepping stone to the next goal in the party's line, even if they don't see it yet.
And I do think you do need to have a certain level of flexibility with being able to make certain things up, because players are going to do things that you're not going to anticipate. So there also needs to be a level of flexibility too on the part of the DM, though he probably went into that a little bit.
Well, many decent, not even good DMs, decent, passable DMs, are a bit flexible. They start realizing that your players are going to come up with some crazy off-the-wall solutions. For me, when it comes down to dealing with solutions or non-expected answers, I am more of the sense of let them do it, let them succeed in it. Well, I mean that's the thing is that in the short term, in the long term, you just take your note that this person did something out of the ordinary, something unique and different, and it will either make you a better DM or it will encourage some interesting play. Like if you literally had everyone have TNT and they're like, we're going to sap this castle, we're going to use our magic to dig underneath it, I'm going to set explosions and implode it on the enemy. It's like, as a DM, like, yeah, you might have had like a 3-hour session set for that and it tears out your hair, but these players have done something really intelligent, really smart of dealing with a problem.
Really funny.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm waiting for you to become Sky Pirates.
No, Mike, your story isn't that linear. Okay, you're fine.
No, it's not about that, ladies and gentlemen. It's just that I'm waiting for the quintessential I'm becoming Sky Pirates, meaning I'm going to go in a completely different direction than what I was than I was prepared for. That's all that That's all it means to me. It's like I'm waiting for we're going to jump the shark and have fun in a crazier, different way.
Mike, at that point you just kind of have to intervene.
No, actually, I disagree with the intervening per se. Because if the players become Sky Pirates...
Have you seen our group? Have you seen the people we play with?
Yes, I've seen Rachel, I'm listening to it. I'm rewriting the notes. I've seen how you guys played. It's something that I don't think much intervening is necessary. I think that's the other problem with many DMs.
I think we do want to play our game, and I think we do really want to continue doing what we're doing. I think it's just that we may end up doing silly stuff along the way, and we're probably going to end up doing some silly stuff.
That's the thing is like many of the DMs people. When they try to work with story, they want to micromanage things, and I think that's something that DMs have to learn not to do. Don't micromanage, even if things go off the rails of what you were expecting. This is the perfect time to work on a very important skill, ad-libbing. Because, I'm going to tell this honestly. Though, like one session, the session we just recently had, where they fought a bunch of tieflings and this bandit, and they just kind of Rachel lassoed one of the guys, and they just completely brutalized them. That was completely ad-libbed. And that's the thing is, you need to, when the players start going off kilter, this is the time where, like, ad-libbing, take it where it goes, and then immediately think, how do you connect it right back? Because otherwise, it's going to show that you're trying to force the players along. And you don't want that.
Yeah.
And again, I think we've been repeating ourselves because it's a very complex issue that we're trying to make a simplified solution to in almost any system, which is just, again, let the players go along, but you got to find a way to slightly rewrite them back on track. It might be
I, for one, am looking forward to the wave of, like, blue whales, like the blue whale NATO.
Exactly. And I think on that note, we'll let the blue whale NATO end. Thank you for joining us today
at the Drunken Tarrasque. If you like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. We'll have some interesting stuff up there. Our Twitter is a Drunk Tarrasque. That is a Drunk Tarrasque at twitter.com.
Mm-hmm. And we will see you guys later on. Hopefully you'll enjoy us. Have a fun time with your games.